This meeting is being recorded.
All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We are up to the fourth day of the 12 days of Christmas. And I first and foremost want to thank everybody for being with us this evening, especially for those of you that have already been taking time out for each of the 4 days of Christmas thus far to be with me. And that is the main reason why I decided to do this on Zoom, so I could see your faces, I can hear your voices. I love this being an interactive program. Before I go ahead and introduce our guest for this evening, just because we are recording this and it's going to be uploaded to YouTube, just want to continually give a little bit of backstory about our 12 days of Christmas. Of course, many of you know I sort of roll with things a little last minute and had the idea to try to do something throughout the holidays to continue to extend the holidays, to continue to extend joy and the festivities, because I don't know about you, but at least for me, I feel like there's such a mad rush for all small businesses that have retail or pressures leading up to Christmas. We kind of get caught up in that and you don't really have a chance to enjoy it. And then I feel like we get to Christmas and then it just kind of comes to a screeching halt until we're like, Happy New Year. And then next thing you know, we're just catapulting into 2023 without taking a breath and enjoying some time. So at least for me, putting this platform together has been a really great way to get me to slow down and spend time with the people I love, my lifers, community, new community. And that's what this is all about. Now, tonight, especially, we all know most of us are from the fiber crafting, knitting community, but I wanted to make sure that I brought diversity to this platform. And I especially wanted to make sure that I also brought some new people to all of you so that you have a chance to meet and support new and other small businesses and learn a little bit of something too. So I think as of right now, Linda, you're my only completely non-knitting, although we're going to have some other non-knitters join us in later programs. But I want to give a big thank you to Linda from Autumn Olive Farms for being our guest and actually so graciously just jumping in on it and being willing to get on the calendar, even though I know this is a little bit of a different program for you, maybe something you don't do normally, and definitely not with this kind of community, but certainly will eventually catch up to, why and how, we got together. But guys, first and foremost, what I want to say is, for those of you that know me, I always talk straight from the heart. And I, as an animal science major, was just absolutely blown away when I had the chance. Was it 2019, Linda?
Yes, yeah,
Yes.
it was.
So 2019 was the first time I went to their farm. Now I had already done my homework, so I was already following and getting to know them a little bit. So I was completely fangirling and couldn't wait to see some of the piggy characters that I was beginning to learn about and fall in love with. I couldn't wait to get done shearing. And then every time I go, I spend more time visiting with the pigs, all of her personalities there. And also, I think it wasn't until maybe the second year that I really had a chance to talk to Clay a lot more, and was just so impressed with the science behind your program as an animal science major and an agricultural girl at heart. And honestly, I really am just blown away by what you guys do there. It's just absolutely beautiful. Last year, when you took me to the other property, the landscape that these pigs have is out of this world. I mean, anybody would want to be vacationing on these rolling hills and the scenery that they have. And then even just today, I don't think I've been there, but I was looking at some of your feed where there's this really wooded area and the foliage. It was just so beautiful to see them all running through the woods and foraging and enjoying themselves, as they should. Now, of course, it makes my two pigs look like complete sloths because they really don't move this time of year. So be it. We could definitely talk about that and the differences in how these animals are raised. But there's so much to cover because, of course, you do have two llamas. That's how we met. I do shear for you. So there is a slight fiber connection, although I think everybody's going to be aghast to hear that you don't do anything with the fiber. But
Well, I
right?
want the fiber. I need help.
Travesty.
See, this is it. You all are going to be able to help me. I have 4 bags of fiber that I need to do something with.
No,
So-
and and the thing is that most when I started this whole thing and the business and when my lifers follow me, and this is no slice against you, but they are completely surprised that there's people that have fibered animals that just love the animals and don't necessarily have a focus on the fiber is more what I mean. But you do have an interesting application, for the fiber, which we can, talk about as well. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you to get started, and then just beware, we're going to roll in a lot of different directions. But if somebody was like, what is Autumn Olive Farms and your background, or however you want to describe it and introduce yourself to the group we have here tonight and to those that will be watching us on YouTube, go for it.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you so much for asking me to be a part of this. Anybody, I don't know how many of you all have Tabitha come and share for you, but it's always a day that I look forward to, other than catching the llamas. That's no fun. Now it's better, but I have a very interesting story about that. But anyway, just so we have a farm and we pasture raise pigs, and we actually farm on 3 different locations, and we wholesale our pork to high-end restaurants in DC, Richmond, and some restaurants locally. And so I went to the safari park. We have an incredible safari park here in Lexington, Virginia. I mean, I was just blown away the first time I ever went there, because I am a vet technician by trade. And
I know I'm going to interrupt you a million times. When you said that to me last night, I don't know that I knew that, or I think I forgot that, totally forgot that.
It's unbelievable. And so anyway, we went there. It's a great stress reliever, because you're going to go and you laugh because you feed the animals out the window and stuff. So anyway, I fell in love with the llamas, and Clay got so sick of hearing me talk about the llamas that in 2017 for Christmas, he got me 2. And I have cowgirl.
I knew that. I don't think I knew.
Yeah. It was a total surprise for Christmas. So in 2017, that was my big surprise. And I have Cowgirl, who she was Deb McDougal. I'm sure a lot of you all might know Deb.
I will say, so Deb is sort of past her involvement. So actually they don't, but it's great for them to hear different names and things like that.
Yes. Yeah. And then Starstruck, I know she came from Texas. You knew where she came from, but I'm not real clear on
I think
her
she came from
background.
Carol. It was I know her first name was Carol. I can't remember the other part right now, but yes, tiny little lady. I know where she came from.
Yeah. So that's because we farm full time. We have a lot of animals that we have to take care of. It's hard to leave the farm. So we brought the entertainment to us. So that's when the llamas came. And I absolutely love llamas. I have a llama tree back here in the back behind me. And I have llamas all over the place. And
more llamas, guys. I keep telling her that.
Yeah, well, we just keep adding all other kinds of creatures. But anyway, so that's how I ended up with llamas.
In terms of though, well, I guess let's stick with let's go back to the pigs, because that's, let's go to your journey of how that all started. We can circle back to the llamas anytime.
Sure.
And also, because I don't even think I remember how you found me. How did you find me?
I found you on social media, and I don't know how you popped up in my social media, but I started following you. And then when you said that you were doing the Share and Share tour, that's when I contacted you, and I was just elated that you came right through here where we live. So it was perfect.
All right.
and that you were willing to come and stop to shear just 2 llamas. So anyway,
And don't
that
tell
was
the rest of my customers that I spend way more time with you than I do any other job,
Yeah.
because I do enjoy it so much. So yeah. So go ahead with your pig background, history, story.
Okay, so we lived in Greensboro, North Carolina for 23 years, and then we moved back here to Virginia on a part of Clay's family farm, and in 2008, and we had goats that we brought with us. Long story on how we ended up with goats, but anyway, we had a herd of almost 300 goats, and we would take them and
That was the boar goats, right? Those were the
Yes,
boar
yes,
goats.
and we would take them all over the state and do forage jobs and clean up, overgrown land and that type of thing. And also they're meat goats, and so we did sell their meat. But most people in America are not crazy about goat meat, and unfortunately it's a great meat, and it has it's very good for you. And I'm laughing because my grandson's walking through here with a suitcase. Sorry. Anyway, yeah. So
He's
oh,
packing his bags. He's leaving.
yeah, no, he's coming to stay. That's what that's all about. But anyway, so we had goats and ended up, it's interesting how we ended up doing the pigs, because even being a veterinary technician, I was aware of the industrial pork and industrial farming methods, but because I did my my term papers, I guess that's what we called it back then, on veal calves. And so I had seen some videos on pigs and how they were raised and their conditions. And I wrote a book called The Righteous Pork Chop, and that changed my life. And it's written by Nicolette Hahn.
Oh, you read the book. Okay.
Yeah, I read the book. Yes.
I thought you said you wrote the book. I was like, I didn't even know that.
No. I read that book, and
I was
basically
heading to Amazon.
it was talking about the pork industry in North Carolina, which is where we lived. And so I just became more aware of what that industry was, how they operate, and the fact that those pigs live an absolute terrible life. So for 2 years, we didn't eat pork, no pork at all. People thought I would go to barbecues and just eat the bun or whatever, and people thought I was a vegetarian, and I'm not a vegetarian at all. But I did not want to eat anything that had to live a horrible life. And so we had the opportunity to start raising some Ossabaw Island pigs. And we were doing a forage job at we have a Frontier Culture Museum here, and they have animals that they had back in the olden days, and those are the Ossabaws. So that's how we ended up with 3 Ossabaw sows that were pregnant. And they had their piglets, and we were already working with some really great chefs, and we took the pork to them, and they're like, oh my word, this is fantastic.
Now, Linda, can I stop you for just 1 second? So the Ossabaw, is that considered, that's considered a heritage breed, correct?
Correct.
So just because I understand that, but perhaps the community that's with us might not as much. So maybe just explain a little bit about the significance of a heritage breed, or at least from your perspective.
Yeah, so Clay, he doesn't want to talk, but anyway.
Clay.
Come on, Clay.
Clay, you're the one.
We want to learn.
Come on, Clay. Tell him I said, well, he can hear me. There is no justification, because he's the one that's on the feed for all of Autumn Olive Farms. It's his voice, everything. So he could talk from the background. It would just be like the videos.
Yeah, he's gone. They've gone to the kitchen. A heritage breed animal is an animal that, the Ossabaws were brought here and I am terrible with facts, but they were brought here by the Spanish explorers and put on an island, Ossabaw Island, off of Georgia, and they brought them in pairs so that they would breed and be on the island. And then when the Spanish explorers came, they would have pork to eat. And so those pigs, and that was a very long time ago. Clay could tell you the date, not me. But anyway, so that is how they got started. And then it's been probably now 40 years ago, they brought some off the island and brought them into a facility where they were just kind of, I guess they were testing them, because they have a gene that has to do with diabetes. And so they were using them to learn more about the diabetes and that type of thing. And so anyway, I'm terrible explaining this. That's Clay.
No,
So-
that's all right. So would you find though, I mean, and I guess what I was kind of looking for also is, would you find that it would be fair to say that oftentimes with these heritage breeds, they're kind of like an old school breed in the sense that they were purposeful for the time in which they were more popular, and
Yes.
that often, at least in the types of animals that I work with, heritage breeds of sheep or poultry, like they tend to really be very hardy animals. Like it's almost like a breed before we got our hands involved and screwed it all up.
That is exactly right. That you summed it up very well. And so the Ossabaw was prized for its fat. So they are, if you look at an Ossabaw, they're very round like a piggy bank, and they have very skinny legs, and they can run super, super fast. And they're very evasive. Anybody that follows me that sees Red Pig, he is mostly Ossabaw. And so they're prized for their fat. But in our country, we don't eat fat like they do in Italy and France and other countries. We don't prize that. So, and they call them like olive oil on legs. So their fat melts and it makes a wonderful lard that you can do all kinds of things with, and also cure it. And they cure their hams for prosciuttos. But so when we took the Ossabaw to some chefs, they were like, this is great. It tastes incredible, but it's not an everyday pig. So it is a pig like you would get to make charcuterie out of and those types of things. So it's not one that you would serve for every day in a restaurant. So enter the Berkshire pig. And the Berkshire is also a heritage breed, but it's been around hundreds and hundreds of years. But what we have found is what you just said about people messing them up is that they have basically bred the mothering ability out of them, and they're just terrible mothers. So we have the Ossabaws, who are incredible mothers, who will literally, they have their babies outside. They'll go in the woods if they're in the woods pen, and they will build an enormous nest, and they will go inside of it, have their babies, and 4 days later come out. And I mean, it's just the most incredible thing. A Berkshire, you have to have a heat lamp, and you have to have a way to separate the piglets, and so on and so forth. So Clay started breeding the two because he was hoping to get, the Berkshire pig is big, it's long, they're known for their loins, and they have nice bellies. So Clay started working on breeding the two to be able to come up with a good genetic cross and a percentage that would hit all the right notes. So he started breeding them, and then we'd send it off to some high-end chefs, and they would say, oh, okay, this is good, but this, you got to have some more balance. It still has too much fat, or so on and so forth. So 6 years, and here we are. And we have the best pork. And we are told that by Michelin star chefs, and they are crazy about our pork, and they'll do anything to get it, because right now we have a little bit of a short supply. So they're crazy waiting to get it. But anyway, so that's how we came up with the Berkabaw. So we took a Berkshire and crossed it with an Ossabaw, and we came up with the name Berkabaw.
Now, just to geek out on my group a little bit, because of course I always love bringing value and just teaching people new things. So what you were talking about in terms of taking the two qualities from the two different breeds, when you're crossbreeding, what we're looking for, which we don't do this with llamas. So I miss having these conversations because there's no breeds of llamas. I mean, in a way, there are different fiber types, different sizes, but technically there's not different breeds. So different llamas have different characteristics based on their country of origin. And certainly I might look at conformational qualities or fiber qualities to cross certain ones to get something else. But when you're legit crossing two different breeds, right, we call that hybrid vigor. And what you're hoping is to be able to bring the best of the qualities from each of those breeds into the offspring, and then having something superior than either of its parents. So I never get to talk about my animal science stuff. So, that's just a term I always remember. And it's, something that plays out in a lot of other species, not necessarily in mine. So,
and crossing those two, we really solve the issue of the Berkshire not being good mothers.
Yeah.
So that the maternal instincts of the Ossiball have really come out in this Berkerball pig.
And my most experience with that, I would say, is like when I was breeding sheep, when I worked for Cornell Cooperative Extension, it would be very similar to that. I would just remember the Suffolks, which were a very tall breed that we sort of like changed as a result to get more meat out of them. Honestly, they'd have their lamb and just keep on going. They could care less about it. And then yet we would have the Jacob, which is a more primitive breed, and they'd have triplets and just be taking care of all of them. So it's amazing when you really firsthand can see those distinct differences in the personalities, the mothering abilities, and all of that. So
you just described a Berkshire have piglets and not even know.
Right.
It's like crazy.
I wonder if it's something related to the fact that the focus ends up being much more on the meat production, or for instance, the egg production. The same thing if you look at a white leghorn, which is your most productive or most prolific egg layer in the poultry industry. They are the flightiest, most high-strung birds and have absolutely no broodiness to them in terms of being able to, hatch their own in a sense. So maybe I just never thought about it that way, but perhaps that's something that's lost, or that tends to get lost. At least I know in our llama industry, people just tend to focus on, qualities, and then forgetting, like you were saying, the other things that are important. Is that mom giving enough milk? Do they have good instincts? And people get driven by money, and they get driven by the end result and what that animal might be selling for, and forgetting even the fact that there's underlying, genetic issues and things like that. So I'll get off.
And I think you see that. Yeah, and I think you see that in just about every industry, because we definitely saw that in the goat industry. People paid a lot of money for goats, and they were going to breed them no matter what.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt us there, because I do even have some directions that I want to, take this in, but I also want to be kind, to our guests. And so, Beth, I'm going to bring you on and highlight you so you can go ahead and ask your question.
On your Berkerball breed, are they still like produce a lot of, are they still good for producing a lot of prosciutto or not? Has that basically been bred out when you mix them with the Berkerballs? Are the Berkshire?
No, they still make a very, very nice prosciutto. As a matter of fact, it's always been what we hope that we could retire, and do, but it's not possible at this time, because you have to have a, oh my, just sorry, the grandson's coming in here again. Now he has a pool noodle. Sorry.
Don't say sorry. That's what this is all about.
Hi, David.
But anyway.
You gotta tell him he's famous. People even know him.
I know. But yes, it does make a very nice prosciutto. And, it's a lot involved with setting up a place to be able to do prosciuttos. So that is a dream someday.
Hey, so Linda,
to be
I'm
able
going
to
to
do that.
ask because I wouldn't know this answer. I mean, obviously, I'm aware, and probably I would think most people are aware, certain types of pork, like our bacon, ribs, things like that, come from different places. So is prosciutto, because I don't really eat that, is it more about the curing of the meat, or does it also come from a specific place as well?
Yes, it's the hams.
Okay.
Yes, it's the legs, the back legs, the hams. You
So
know
it's
how you
the ham,
see
but it's
you see them on a, yes, like on a stand. You know, you've seen the hams that sit on the stand, and then people, cut it very thin. That's what it is.
okay, but it tastes different
Yes.
than regular ham. So is it cured differently?
That's a question for Clay, but yes,
Because I
yeah,
feel
it
like it's like
is.
super salty, right? From at least
It's
from what I
aged,
remember.
right?
Yes, it is age. It takes 18 months. I mean, sometimes even longer.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
that is right. So it's cured differently than other hams are. So
You,
yes.
you can taste the difference between how long it's been aged.
All right,
Okay,
Beth, well,
thank
thank you so much. I'm gonna take you off. I really appreciate the questions. Dawn, I'm gonna come to you. Thank you so much. I saw your hands up before. I was just trying to find a good opportunity. So go ahead, Dawn.
That's fine. She answered my question earlier. And as far, coming from the nursing background, I do know that pigs are very much like humans. And that's why so much of the study is pertinent. And I'm
Yes.
sure you don't know the answer. I'm kind of curious if any of that would have to do with the way that they've been like crossbred and gotten away from their heritage part. But my question right now is, do you think the reason that some of these have lost their maternal instinct is because of so much human interaction? I mean, like dogs, you look at dogs as companions. There's no way that some of these dogs could go out and live in the wild if they had to. So I
Yes.
just
and it-
wondered
and-
if somehow they know that and it's part of their demeanor as they grow up, they just that's how they
Yeah, and the
lost it.
other, yes, and the other thing is that people will just continue to breed animals that they honestly should not be breeding. If you have a pig that is not a good mother, you should not breed her. I mean, you absolutely should not. We can give them two chances, but
Right.
you can't, because then you pass that on, and it just continues going on, and that's what we see.
Well, and
There's
also
humans
like,
that shouldn't be breeding too, but
but I mean, and in
Yeah.
the animal industry, I mean, at least I'll say too, we do the same thing. Like we give them two chances, but that kind of goes along hand in hand with what I said earlier. Let's just say you have a dam, or a female, a sow, and let's just say it's this prized animal. There's a lot of people that even if they find after one or two breedings that it's not a good mom, they still know that they're going to get great money for whatever comes out of it because she is prized as XYZ. So instead of making the hard decision to cull that girl from a breeding program, people will continue to do it because they're driven by the money more so than the basics of
That's true.
and what's important. At least that's what I see, in our industry, or definitely more in the pet industry versus, the meat industry, but I'm sure the same, still applies. Yeah,
that was what I was
Well,
thinking with what you were saying, is it's more like, oh, I can win the Westminster with this. Who cares if it's not a good mom? That's what you're saying.
yes.
The characteristics of yeah.
Yep.
So an interesting sideline to that is Clay and I went to a pork conference, and it was for niche producers. What we didn't realize is that we were invited to a pork conference that was put on by the Pork Board, and all their veterinarians and those that raise pigs industrially. And so they had different people speak, and they were so proud of their practices of a pig, they artificially inseminate them, the sow gets pregnant, and they pull those piglets off, and I cannot remember, it's like maybe 3 or 4 weeks. It's really, really young. And then they give the female hormones to put her right back in heat and breed her, artificially inseminate her again. So it's just, and those pigs have to have no mothering abilities because they're in crates. So they're literally locked down in a crate and the piglets can come in and nurse them. And it's just, we were horrified about the things that, you know, they told that they were taught, and they were very proud of it because that is how they do. But there's nothing natural about that at all. Nothing, you know. And you know, sometimes we have pigs who don't get pregnant, or, you know, one time Clay and I we used to raise Labrador retrievers, and we had a female that our male would not breed her. And so we artificially inseminated her. It was somebody else's dog, and those puppies were a disaster. And, you know, how did they know?
We don't know. They know something we don't know, right?
Yes, yes. I mean, I will never forget that. And it was the worst litter of puppies. They were just kind of crazy in the head, but somehow or another, that male dog knew he should not be breeding that female. So.
And you
Yeah.
answered my question exactly with what you were saying, as far as it's because of human interaction that they don't learn those things. So thank you. You
That's
make
right.
me small now, please.
All of our animals we put a boar in the pasture, and he breeds the females, and he'll stay, you know, in there with them until we have a group that gets bred, probably about 3 months, because we don't want to have you know, a long farrowing window, because what happens is, because we have our pigs that move in groups, there's usually about 50 sows in those groups. And if you have piglets that are born, you know, 1 month, and then 4 months later, you have another group of piglets, because they all interact and mix in together. It's not good to have those bigger piglets with the smaller ones. So we try and keep it in a tighter window. But, you know, so they all breed naturally, and then they farrow naturally. And then we do not wean our piglets until about 4 months or so. And the mothers wean them naturally. They take care of all of that. So everything that we do is done in a natural way. The animals behave like, you know, they're supposed to.
Don, I'm going to ask you to just hang on for me if you can, or drop in the chat what your question is. Not that I don't appreciate it at all. And just to also clarify, you used the word farrow. I'm not sure that people would know, although they could guess. So farrow is the term for pigs to give birth. We don't have
Yes.
a fancy term for llamas. They just spit them out. We don't really, we don't have
I
any.
never thought about that.
No, we
There's
don't
no
have-
term for llama.
Nope, they llama. I don't know. We don't have a fancy term for it at all. So, and you know, I'm only curving conversations in different ways. I'm just honestly so excited. And I said to you too, Linda, like, I can just completely geek out about your program and everything that you guys have behind it. I really want to just sort of, get to the one question that I know a lot of people always wonder or ask, especially people that might be sensitive to, maybe they do or don't eat meat. You know, everybody always wants to know the answer to, how do you raise animals that you know are going to, you know, go for slaughter? I'll certainly be honest and say it's something that I circumvent here, but you and I were talking earlier, you know, in my early days, it's really one of the reasons why I eventually rebranded, because I was Long Island Livestock Company, not knowing where I was going with my business in the very beginning. And then after a while, either people surmising or just that connotation of the word livestock to the average person who's just not really sure about what that means. Plus in Google searches, and it still happens, I'm constantly getting calls about, do you have animals for meat, which I don't mind, but I don't feel like being a directory, you know, of like resourcing and turning people around in different directions. And I feel like it hasn't happened in a long time, but even in my early days, you know, I would get some negative comments on social media, or people, instead of just asking, you know, do we eat any of our animals? And I do find, and this is not anything against our fiber community, of course, I do find that people in our fiber community are a lot more aware, let's say, of the different things in different industries, maybe sometimes not totally educated about the broad base of all of the different types of people that raise animals. And I'm always happy to advocate that. I've definitely seen, as a vet tech teacher, you know, a change in the population of our students that come through the program as well. Nowadays, being more sensitive to the things that they see on social media and read about and things like that. So my whole point is I get to avoid all of that by saying I don't eat anybody on my farm. Now, that's not to say in the past, I will totally share, once we had a batch of meat chicks that we just acquired. So we did raise them out, and you really pretty much have no choice but to process them. They are not designed for longevity or to live a long life. Their bodies just, break down. So we did do that. And honestly, there was once that we raised rabbits, for meat. And I got to be honest, even though I loved the meat and even though I was very proud of knowing where your meat comes from, it's definitely not something, I could do. And I didn't even do it. We had friends come in and do it. So I'm just gonna say I'm a personal advocate of what we would consider. So most of us are involved in slow fashion, meaning we're advocates for, people that raise the animals on the farm instead of fast fashion. I've been slow fashion all my life and had no idea it had a term. And so I'm also a proponent for slow food. It doesn't mean you have to be organic, right? But you are raising the animals, loving the animals, knowing what goes into those animals. So I will make choices to eat meat if I know what has gone into it and that there's not, hormones and dyes and things like that. And then of course there's love and care, behind the program. So I just wanted to say that in order to just be an advocate for you and give some support to my platform and to my people. But I know that that's always a big question. And I had a couple conversations with people leading up to today about that as well. So I'd love your take on, how that is for you. Because I know that then that's going to segue. I know what's going to segue us into. So.
Well, it's the hardest thing we do. And we, it is, we don't like that part of what we do. And because Clay and I both love animals. We met at an animal hospital, and we've always had animals and love them. And so, we do what we do because of, what you explained. Our animals live a very happy life, and, until the one day. And even that, we are very particular about when we send our animals off to be processed. They go as a group. They go, it's not, we don't stress them and all of those kinds of things like you hear, or you can hear stories about. But anyway, that is one of the hardest things we do. So a way that we cope with that is that we have pets, and we allow ourselves to become attached to our pets. And I think that's how probably a lot of you have found me is,
and I know that's Amy's, I was going to say, and Amy, I see that that's your question. So I was smiling because I knew that asking Linda this question was going to segue us, not to say that this hasn't been the fun stuff, but, then it'll segue us into the fun stuff, because I think it's important that people understand that just because you process animals for meat doesn't mean you don't love them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we truly do, all of them. And so we have pets, and we probably have way more than we should. Other farmers look at us and I know they think we're ridiculous. I don't care. I love my animals. I love our animals are not a commodity to us. I know a lot of people, other farmers, their animals are more of a commodity. They don't have a relationship with them. We have a relationship with our animals.
And how do
Clay,
you choose who are your pets?
Well,
I know
they usually have a story. So, it can be piglets that get injured for some reason, or something happens to their mother and they become orphaned and that type of thing. So that's how we end up with pets, and they end up being or do they choose you? Yes, probably they choose us too, because there are some who aren't orphans and they just, I don't know. They just kind of like attach themselves to you. But
well, Linda, not to keep interrupting you, but here's what's important. Tell people what would happen in an otherwise normal meat production facility, an animal that was injured or an animal that's orphaned.
Well, as our veterinarian said, knock it in the head. That's what he told us to do to Bobby Sue. And we can't do that. We had to give her a chance. She was a piglet that we found that she had neurological symptoms and we weren't sure what that was. So we called the veterinarian and he came rushing over because he was very worried we had something, going on that could be bad in pigs. And so he looked at her and decided it wasn't what he was thinking. And he said, I would just knock that one in the head. Well, of course we weren't going to do that because we'd already had her living in the house. And so we started treating her and gave her some dexamethasone and antibiotic, and ended up that her head had been swollen and we didn't realize it. And when the swelling went down, she had a skull fracture. So she is our very special pig. She's completely deaf and her little gyroscope gets off when she gets all excited, but she's one of our pets. That's Bobby Sue that we have fallen in love with.
She was one of the ones I was so excited to meet when I came that first time.
Yes, she was there at the house. That's right. And so, like I said, it doesn't make good business sense as we have these pets that we feed them, but that's what I look forward to every day, is going out and seeing them and spending time with them and talking to them. And whether I'm on video or not, I have conversations with them every day.
We all do.
Yes, that's why I love y'all are animal people, so you understand. She's not some crazy animal person.
So tell us so I call them, like I refer to, plus I'm a big fan of alliteration. So I call mine, my cast of characters, right? Because they all have different personalities. They all have different things that they do. And I know that that's what everybody looks forward to. I mean, of course, they want to understand, what we do here and all that kind of stuff. But, it just brings joy. So, tell us about some of your cast of characters, because it goes way beyond the pigs for sure. But so do you still have Billy Joe?
No, we lost Billy Joe. So he was a piglet that we don't know what happened to him, but he had a terrible joint infection when he was a piglet, and he did great. And then all of a sudden it came back, and the veterinarian, there was not anything, that we could do. So we did lose Billy Joe, and all of our pets that we have.
Priscilla? Do you still have Priscilla?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Billy Joe, Priscilla, Fat Brother, Other Brother, Harriet, Harold, Bandit. But there's more. So anyway.
All right. Wait. So how did Harold, so I feel like, and actually, I think it was somewhere, maybe it was last night, my community was challenging that Harold and Stewie, like Harold was going to give my Stewie a run for his money, because Stewie is sort of like the ladies' man on our farm, and Harold has become that, for you, Happy Harold. So, he is is he one of your boars? No, he's a pet. So yes, Happy Harold, that's right. So in 2016, we had a reproductive virus rip through our herd, and we lost almost our entire piglet crop. And we had 5 pigs that we were able to save, and the veterinarian kind of used them as a test group to see what maybe was going on with them, and what we could do for them. And so that's where Harold came from. So Harold and Bandit are the only 2 that I have of that group left. Okay.
And and Harold, I don't even know how it happened, but I had a French pastry chef in Charlottesville come over here and wanted to see Harold and brought him some pastries. Well, he loved them. And then she started giving us her leftovers. And so Harold was eating my car smelled like a bakery. The butter was oozing out of the croissants. We're talking really high-end pastries here, macarons and all these kind of good things. So she would send them, and she told me that her employees would sometimes purposely mess up on some recipes so that Harold would get them. So anyway, She has since retired, so Harold does not get those treats like he used to. So he's got another bakery that bakes bread for him, and but he really likes sweets. So
Well, I was somewhere again, I was chatting that you told me that the macaroons were his favorite, which I can
yeah,
appreciate that. I'm a coconut girl, so I can certainly appreciate that as well. That is
Yeah.
too funny. Now the other and that big group, because I mean you mentioned Red Pig. So I remember
Red
that
Pig.
they were
Yeah, Red Pig
they're
is
all
in
pets.
there.
Are they all neutered? Castrated?
Well, yes, if it's a boar and it's older like that, yes. Well, they're called barrows, but yes. Red Pig was not meant to be a pet. He just happened to live over there where Harold did at our old house. And we had some Ossaballs in the pen next to where Harold and Bandit, and it was Petey and Smokey and Petey, Smokey, Bandit. Oh my goodness, I'm having a senior moment. Anyway, that the Ossaballs lived next to him. And I was always terrified of mixing those pigs with the Ossaballs because the Ossaballs, can fight, and some of them have some really big tusks. And so I was worried about them mixing. And one day I went out there. Y'all are going to die when I tell you this. So they had knocked the fence over, and I saw something moving in the bushes, and Harold was over there trying to breed one of the Ossaball pigs.
Was it a sow or was it a barrow?
Behind the bushes. It's a sow. And I mean, he didn't have anything, he was cut. And I was like, it was obscene what I walked up on. I mean, the bushes were moving, and I was like, oh dear Lord. And so he moved in there with that group, and none of them were pets. And prior to that, Harold did not have tusks. And when he moved over there with the Ossaballs, he grew tusk, and we have no explanation for that whatsoever. None. And we don't, it's a very strange thing that happened. So Harold and then they mixed in with the Ossaballs. Everybody got along fine. And then, I would feed my pets their pastries. And then Red Pig decided that he kind of was interested in the pastries. So he now came up to get pastries. And so that's how he kind of ended up being he's not as much of a pet as Harold. You can't pet him because he's Ossaball. He wants to stay back in the background of things.
Well,
So
and two things with that. So on my farm, any of our males that we castrate, usually at, I don't want to say a later age, but maybe after they've already had an experience, but they don't lose the interest in the females. So I always say they did not get the memo. Like, they did not read the letter that said that is not what they should be doing anymore. So they still have that instinct, and it's pretty funny. At least I think so. But, and then the other thing is just to share experience when I was there and got a chance to, every year I want to feed Harold and stuff. But yeah, I remember Red Pig, I think because I was different. I think he even normally comes closer for you, but he would not, he would not come
that's correct
at all because he knew I was different.
Yeah, that is correct. He's more Ossaball, and that is the Ossaballs are standoffish, and they're hard to raise because they're not as domesticated like the Berkshire is. A Berkshire pig, you can go in, a mother, and you can handle her piglets. You can, castrate them early. You can do all of those things, but not with the Ossaball. If you want to go in on an Ossaball mom, you might not come back because she is going to fight you fiercely. Now that has toned down some with mixing the Berkeball, but we still have some Berkeballs who are very, very, agitated if you try and go in and mess with their piglets.
And I always find it, Dawn, I'll get to you. I also found it interesting, like when I would come to the farm and you guys take me out on the quad, they respond a lot differently. So you taught me that, they are comfortable with the quad versus if you just came in there on foot. And of course, the first year especially, I'm squealing, like I'm 5 years old because I was so excited and I was scaring them. So I remember you guys were like, shh, you know, you got to like tone it down if you want to be able to see them. So they are still primitive in that sense, you know, that they,
Yes. yes.
you know, are particular, you know, about their environment, and, you know, they're not overly domesticated by any stretch. So.
Yeah, and when we moved, so Harold grew the tusks and they were starting to grow back into his, anybody who watches knows that they had started growing back into here. And we were so worried, you know, what were we going to do? Because he is too big to knock out. He weighs, you know, over 600 pounds. And it's a pig is a hard animal to anesthetize. You have to give him a cocktail of drugs. And I just know from the veterinarian being here, having to anesthetize some other ones, it's hard to do. So we knew that wasn't an option. And we've just been, you know, so worried about how in the world we were going to deal with his tusks. And anyway, we moved our farm across the street in 2020, and we still own the farm across the street. Our son lives over there, but Clay was like, I really think we should bring Harold and all of them over here. And so now they're literally in my front yard, which I absolutely love. But so at that time, that was a good time to try and cut his tusks. So Clay got, you know, these big nippers, these things. And I did not want to be anywhere around because I did not think that it was going to go well at all. It just, it really, he was on the trailer with Harold and the guys were there just in case something bad happened. And he went and he cut them, and Harold didn't even care. So he was able to cut them both. I need to get him to bring them in here to me. It was like they're going to make a necklace out of them, but they're big, huge tusks. And Harold, he didn't care one single bit. And we have been you don't know how bad we were stressing about that and what we were going to do for him because he was, you know, that was growing into his jaw.
Now, have
And
they
so-
started to grow back? Because I had to do that with my Piggity. He had
Yeah.
one that was growing into his face, and unfortunately we did have to knock him out. And
Yeah.
that was adorable while he was asleep because we gave him a bath, we did his feet, we painted his toenails, he blow dried them. We had like a grand old time while he was knocked out, but coming out of anesthesia, it was not good at all. You know, they don't always wake up well. So, but I have to keep an eye on it because I do find that it is, you know, slowly growing back. And yet the same thing like you in all my education, if he's a barrow, he should not have the testosterone, that should not be generating the tusk growth. And yet, you know, lo and behold. So yeah, I don't know. All right.
I don't know either.
Bring you in there. All right. Go ahead with your question, Tom.
Actually, that's exactly what my question was, is I do know, for example, with the clownfish, I do know that the female is larger. They couple, they'll in their anemone. And if the female dies, the male will become female. And,
Interesting.
you know, I do know that there have been cases they have found where eggs have been laid and things like that when there's been no other around that have been viable.
Well,
So
would
I
have to
just wondered,
imagine-
have you guys reported this to anyone? Is this something that would be, I mean, to me, this would be something to report that would be interesting as far as just keeping records.
Yeah, no, we
Maybe
haven't.
not.
I mean, I don't know who we would talk to about it, but definitely when Harold, you know, when he got in there with the, can you bring me his tusks? Harold's tusk. When he got in there with those other male pigs, that's when it happened. That's when he grew these enormous tusks.
Right.
He didn't have them before that.
Well, I wonder, Linda, if so, for instance, like you can have a mom be brought into milk just based on like the stimulation of maybe like at least in other animals, a baby nursing, or if other things are going on around them, right? It like brings in that oxytocin and that milk letdown, as we would call it. So, wow, look at that.
Well, let's see. Wait a minute. There you go. It hasn't been cleaned up yet. It still has his mud on it, but that's just one of them. And Clay just nipped it right off, and he didn't even flinch. So, yeah,
I'm
amazing.
gonna have to get Clay down here then if Piggity's grows too long again. We'll feed him a lot of pastries and he can snip it off.
He's watching David.
We're gonna go take a bath.
Good luck with
Say
that.
hi. Can you say hi?
Hi. Hi. We're gonna take a
Hi,
bath.
David.
Okay.
Oh, well, so, all right, Linda, tell us a little bit about some of your other cast of characters. I know, for instance, like I remember Cadillac when I was there. I'll have to post my video of me boxing with Cadillac. But I think I missed the chapter about where you ended up with ducks. So how did you get ducks?
Well, we'll go back to Cadillac, and somebody just asked me, yes, David's feeling better. This is the first time that we've had him here since December 9th. They have had RSV, and it went into pneumonia for my son, and so we had to cancel Christmas, and so we're having Christmas this coming weekend. So anyway, we're giving his parents a break, and we have him today through Sunday. So very excited about that. And he loves to help out on the farm. He's a natural with that. But so Cadillac, let's talk about Cadillac. So Cadillac was a rooster that came to us. I don't know how many of you all remember him. Clay gave him to me for my birthday, even though I wasn't really wanting a rooster. It just happened to be that's when he came. And he was the only bird, that we had. And he bonded with the goat, which was really interesting. And what he was a chick that the local FFA kids had gotten at the school, and they thought that they were getting 3 hens and 1 rooster, and they ended up with 2 roosters and 2 hens. So our neighbor said they remembered Andy the turkey. We had a turkey at one time. If anybody follows this way back, they know about Andy the turkey. And anyway, she said, oh, they would be a good place for him. So he did come and live here, and we loved him, but he did start acting like a rooster, and he attacked me, and we just could not have him with little David here. David learned to use the flag to keep him away, but it just was not worth it. And, we have elderly people that come and visit. And so anyway, when we got the cows, the people we got the cows from took the roosters. So we traded a herd of cows for a rooster.
Sounds like a
and then the geese that came, we were contacted by someone who had these geese, and they had to move, and they could not take the geese with them. And they knew we had a lovely pond and wondered if we wanted geese. So that's how they came here. And then the ducks, somebody else that raises ducks, they had a bunch of them, and they needed to get rid of some of them. So they came to live here. Richard actually belonged to one of the guys that works for us. And Richard is a mallard duck, and he's the only mallard that we have. And he's a very interesting duck. He disappeared for a period of time. Like, we thought something had got him or he was gone. And I found him literally sitting out on the other side of the fence underneath a pokeberry, which had a great big, huge leaf over him. And he sat there and he was contemplating life. And I talked to him, and I said, Richard, you need to come back over here. And I think that he contemplated life and decided that life over here wasn't so bad. So he's come back and he hasn't left. So, and then the other Muscovy ducks, which I'm completely new to that. Oh, and something else about Richard, I had no idea that male ducks completely change color. I mean, any of you all who've seen him, I did Google Lens on it, and it told me that he was a female rowan duck. So I'm not sure that's how you say it, but I went for a period of time wondering if that was even Richard, because I thought, okay, he's left and some other duck has come to live here. And I honestly thought that. And then somebody said, so we have very knowledgeable Instagram followers, and somebody said no, that they changed their color. And sure enough, he changed back to the green and the white ring around his head, and now he looks like a mallard. But apparently in the summer, they changed to a brown to camouflage to help keep them from, predators, help save them from predators. So, and then the Muscovies came to us. And so we have 3 females and 3, I think you call them drakes. And I did not know that Muscovies don't quack. Did anybody else know that? I had no idea that Muscovy ducks, they don't quack. They hiss, and I heard it for the first time today. You'll have to listen
I was
to the
gonna
story.
say, I saw your story today. Richard was going on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah. Richard quacks. He tells me everything, but the Muscovies, they don't. And it was very strange. And Richard has really taken a liking to the 3, and we call them the Golden Girls. And so anyway, that's how we ended up with ducks. So we have ducks, we have chickens. Rachel, I don't know if she's still on here, but she had given us 16 chickens, and I had gotten 10. So yeah, we have quite and we have miniature horses. Now let me tell you. Well, yes, let me tell you about those. Since Clay's upstairs giving the grandson a bath, I can talk about this because we have a friend, a guy that I went to high school with that I had not seen, oh gosh, in about 30 years. And we reunited, and his family has a miniature horse farm, and they had a lot of miniature horses, and they used to raise them and sell them all over internationally. And these particular horses are bred for their good nature. They're great with kids. You can do just about anything to them. And anyway, he said, wouldn't you like to have a horse for your grandson? And I thought, oh, and a miniature horse, that would be kind of nice. And I talked to my daughter-in-law, and she said, yeah, that would be nice because it would be small and little David could ride it. And so we went to go visit, and Virginia and I had thought, we would get 2 because you want to have 2. So he would have a companion. So Clay went along, and our son went, and our grandson went. Well, Clay fell in love with the horses, and we have 8 instead of 2. So that's his doing, but I'm the one who gets to take care of them. But that's our love for animals. So anyway, and Belmont gave us a terrible scare 2 weekends ago, and we almost lost him, but we brought him through it, and he's doing great. So anyway.
Wow. They all have beautiful homes, and definitely for those of you guys that have jumped on, of course, that I've not had the chance to say hello to, I certainly see you here. Glad you're here, but you guys have got to follow Linda, because I sometimes I even ask her, I'm like, where do you have time to do all of this? So it is, just really fun to watch that. And again, I always have an absolute blast. Although as much as she does her stories, I'll still never forget, you had not done Instagram lives until
No.
showed up, and then we would do those with shearing. And there was even the one time where I had you have 2 cameras, so you were doing a live on my camera, a live on your camera, as we were going to town on the girls. And so we always have a good time being able to.
And that's the only time I've done a live. I need to do it. But what I do is I just go out there, and Belmont might give Stewie a run for his money. Yeah. I just, and some of the stuff that I miss with those animals is incredible. I can't film everything. It's hard to film and take care of everybody. But basically, I just bring everybody along with what I do and what I love to do. And I get so many messages from people who are saying, I had a really, really bad day, and that just brought me a lot of joy. And I have people who pour wine every night, and they watch the videos. And I go places, and people ask me, well, how's Harold doing? And, it's out of the blue, and everybody knows the animals. So I love it that it's something that I can do that brings me joy. What I love can bring others joy.
No, that reminds me, didn't Harold get like a sponsorship from
Duke's Mayonnaise?
Yes.
That's
right. So the Duke's Mayonnaise marketing people love Harold, so they came out and brought Harold mayonnaise.
But wait, how did you know them? Did they just start following you?
We have connections through restaurants, and I don't know how they may have found us through our son Tyler. I don't know, but the girl that does the marketing for them loves pigs, and her dream was to come out and meet Harold, and so she did. And yeah, that was fun.
That
That
is
was a
fun.
lot of
And that reminds me too, maybe just good to mention in terms of how much of a family affair that it is. So I will also say, if you guys are looking for some great food content, you need to follow Tyler. But I forgot to ask you, so it wasn't Little Donna, it was Big Donna, right? Because I love the way you guys
Yeah.
say that. Does he still have those two?
Yeah, Boo Boo and Donna, yes.
Boo Boo and Donna,
And
that's right.
yeah, Boo Boo Donna, yes. And Boo Boo and Donna are a problem because they don't fit in with any of my other pets. So they both were injured really bad when they were piglets. They were stepped on, and Donna had a broken leg, and Boo Boo, he had a really bad tear in his back, I think it was, or whatever. But we doctored him up, and see, when you doctor them up, and it just they become pets. So anyway, Tyler hand raised them and bottle fed them, and now they live out there at the barnyard. But I can't let them loose in the barnyard because Boo Boo wants to chase the horses, so that doesn't work. But the problem is, even though Boo Boo is a barrow, he was cut later, what you were talking about. He's a perfect example. So he still thinks he's a barrow and acts like one, and was mounting on Donna and messed her up where her hip was, her hip was broken. And so now I've had to separate them, and Boo Boo is really mad about it, but he's having to get over it. And so I think Donna is probably going to have to stay in the barnyard. And I've got, she's getting medication, she's getting treatment for everything, but Donna's probably going to have to stay in the barnyard. And we think we have a group that we can move Boo Boo to. Because they can't be, like, I can't move them to Harold's group because I would be afraid that Harold, would kill them. And then Bobby suing them, they're too big as well.
Yeah.
So he just has
it's
to.
always tough when you've got those different sizes. And I mean, I don't know that I ever shared it necessarily, or maybe people who really follow me intently, like one time I tried to put Stewie in with his dad and my other big stud. And, there's just natural territorialism that's going to happen. And I just couldn't bear to witness it. And I just grabbed Stewie, and I just ran back to his pen with his grandpa. He was horrified. I was screaming, like, he's just my baby boy. Like, he's the same size as the dad, but I couldn't have that happen. So it's hard, no matter what the size is, even if they were comparable size, at least I find with my animals, somehow or other, they still know based on age. Like, they know you are the young one, and I don't care if you're even bigger than me, you do not have a chance to be above me. And it's so interesting to see that. And they are terrible, trying to introduce new animals into the group. I mean, you can get through it, but if that size difference is there, you have to be real careful.
Yeah, you do. And one thing that you can do for pigs is you can put vinegar on their nose, and that is a way that you can mix some pigs. If you have to mix some groups, you can put vinegar on their nose, and it works. So you hear those things, you're like, what? But yeah, that's what they have to do. So they come in the house, I need vinegar. And I'm like, okay. So somebody on there asked how we came up with their names. And they just come to us. I have no idea how Tyler came up with Boo Boo.
That's Dawn probably asking that question, because she's probably razzing on me because I still have my one unnamed llama.
I can identify with that because we had a goat. We had a goat one time. We could never think of a name for it. I mean, we had that goat and he never had a name. And he had a tag and he had a number, so he was a number. He never got a name. So yeah, I understand.
Sometimes, but everybody who's been with me every night knows the culminating 12th day of Christmas on January 6th, he is officially going to be named. So I'm just stringing everybody along for that. So they're gonna have to tune in on the 6th to get his name. So I know a couple of questions that maybe the group is asking, or at least I would want them to know, because I know so many of at least my community, we're all about supporting small business. But to the best of my knowledge, you are totally wholesale, correct? So you do not, provide anything retail, right?
No, we did during when
Okay.
COVID hit, our business was restaurant wholesale and we lost almost all of our business overnight. I was in bed for 3 days. It just, we thought this is it, we're done. And so we had to quickly pivot and take our, and I'm going to talk about cutting meat because it just will help you understand. So normally when we sell pork, we sell a side of pork or a ham or a loin or a belly or a shoulder, and you take it to a restaurant and you deliver it to a chef and he knows exactly what to do with it and he'll cut it, the way that he wants it. But you can't sell that, for retail. So we literally had to take our pigs and take them all the way, down to cuts, to pork chop, bacon, and all of those things. And so we had to pivot and we sold retail during COVID for that, for a period of time while all of our restaurants closed. They were closed for a period of time. Some of them never came back. Some of them did. And a lot of them survived it, thank goodness. And so it's a lot harder to sell retail. Hats off to anybody who is in the retail business because I am not cut out for selling retail. I am just not. It's a lot of communication. It's a lot of explaining. You drop it off at the restaurant, they know exactly what to do with it, but you have to educate people on how to, cook a pork chop or prepare or do that type of thing. And cooking is not my thing. So anyway, I have a husband that can cook and 3 sons and they're all incredible. And I can cook. It's just not something that I enjoy. But so we did that, I guess, for a year. And now we're back to 100% restaurant wholesale.
Now, with
So-
regards to the wholesale, so let's just say, because we've got people from, all different areas. What if somebody was like, well, I'd really love to try their meat. So do you generate a list of the restaurants that carry your pork? And where can people find that then?
Okay, so if you look on our website, you can see a list of butcher shops that carry our pork. We don't list the restaurants simply because we rotate on and off menus. So the chefs that we work with are chefs who are real creative, and then they'll, maybe feature the special dish for a period of time or that type of thing. We do have some retail stores that sell. There's a Greenwood Gourmet grocery in Crozet, and there's some other it's called 4P. There's food delivery services that sell some of our pork, and it's mainly in Virginia and in Northern Virginia, and we do have a couple butcher shops in Maryland.
Now, in terms of the restaurants, is that only in Virginia as well, or does that move into like my area towards the city and things, or it doesn't
boy, they would love to. Yeah, we've been asked to come to New York. It's a bridge too far right now. Mainly in Washington D.C., Maryland, and Richmond, and Charlottesville and Stanton is restaurants that carry our pork.
Right.
So if you're ever going somewhere and want to know, you can always just send me a message. And I can Chesapeake. Okay, in Chesapeake, you can get our product through Neighborhood Harvest. They actually are in Chesapeake, and they do home delivery service, and they have sausages, and I think they might have some pork chop. I don't know. You have to just check with them and see. So.
Well, I know for one, I mean, certainly, as you and I were talking, I have a woman nearby to me. She actually has me come and trim her goat hooves. And she raises pigs on
Mhm.
a small acreage, here on Long Island. So I have had her pork and her products just because, again, I mean, that's something that I'm interested in supporting for sure. So it's always interesting every time I go to her place as well, and hear about what she does and how she does it, and things like that. So I am well aware. I mean, I'm so excited. I mean, I know I could go on and on and on, but I'm more thrilled, for my community and all the questions. And I'm, definitely watching the comments in the chat and things like that. Does
I can't
anybody-
figure out how to see the questions. I see them pop up and then they go away. I think somebody asked.
If you go to the bottom of your screen, you'll see where it says chat. And if you tap on it, it'll pull up the chat to the right side of your screen, and then you can see the questions there. If you scroll your mouse, it'll bring up your toolbar on the bottom. And then you should see a bunch of different icons on the bottom. It'll say like participants, and right next to it that says chat. So, but either way, I'm watching them as well, so that way.
Okay, all right,
If
maybe
you're
I
on
see.
an iPad or if you're on an iPad or a Mac, it's different.
That's right. Yeah, you are on an iPad.
Uh-oh, I've just done something here. Okay, let me see. Oh,
Oh.
I don't know. I've done something. Okay.
Well, you still look
Hi,
normal to us, and we can still hear you. So
Okay, all right. Okay, yeah, I'm not going to touch anything else. Okay.
No, I
This
got
is,
you. I'm
on-
watching the chat, so that's not a problem at all. And like I said, guys, for those of you that are dropping stuff in the chat, if you see me smile, I see it, I'm reading it, so I'm certainly glad about that. I definitely want to say yeah.
I found it. Okay. All right. I found it. Okay. Sorry, y'all. I'm not.
That's why I said it gets a little dicey. I always feel like as a host and we're communicating, I hate when my eyes are darting, or if I start typing, and I'm not directly looking at the screen, but of course everybody knows what we're doing. So it's always fun to, just kind of see. So like, for instance, Amy asked, how many piglets do you have at a time? And the other thing, actually, we can tie into that because it was an interesting question. I did see it. I think it was from Dawn a bit earlier. The other question was, and it was completely legit, it's a great question. So, how many piglets do you have? And then also the question was, with them being pastured, how do you, I mean, I think I know the answer, but how do you keep siblings from breeding each other if they're all just pastured together?
Okay. Good question. And as far as numbers of piglets, we have groups of sows and gilts, and they, I can't remember exactly how many groups he has right now, but we have pigs year round, piglets year round, and we have them in groups. So groups usually probably average, I would say, between 150 and 200 piglets. It just depends on how many sows are in that group. And so when we wean the pigs, that's when we cut the males. And so, cutting is removing their testicles, and so fixing them. And so then everybody can be together. And then if there's any breeding boars that we want to keep, then those go into a totally separate pen. And that's another challenge in itself, because, you might have like one really great boar that you want to pull out, but they've got to go into, another pen. So yeah, we have a lot of pigs. They're spread out all over. One of the farms that we farm is over 400 acres. The one here is 110 acres. And then we have another 90 acres across the street. So we are spread out all over the place. And the piglets have huge areas to run in. Our nursery pens here at this farm are a little bit smaller, but we wanted to have them close by during the winter because we can have trouble with predators. And so Clay just wanted to be able to keep an eye on them. We've had trouble with foxes getting our piglets. So
Lynn, I don't know
and
if
the
I
cow-
missed, I don't know if I missed you saying, because I have animal issues here in you had grandson issues. I've got animal issues in the background here. Did you say in terms of total numbers, meaning in terms of like the number of sows that you have, boars, like your total operation, to give people an idea of the size of everything that you do, as well as the acreage that you're farming currently on the 3 farms, I think, right?
Yeah. So the acreage is 400 and some and 100 and some and I guess 90 some. And, we could have a high number of pigs for us would be over 900 and probably right now, I don't think we have as many. Clay would have to total them all up. We're probably around 800, I would say, between 700 and 800. So, and lots of
So
pigs.
if you can see Dawn's answer, or Dawn's question.
Yeah, wow.
So-
It's a lot, but if you came here, you would just be shocked when, Tabitha's been here and they're in huge paddocks, it doesn't look like that. You would never know that
No,
we have
it's
that many pigs.
absolutely- it's absolutely
Yes.
gorgeous.
Yes, we actually do have 2 guys that work for us full time. Yes, besides Clay and I. And yeah,
Now, do your sons work?
they did, but
Do they work with you?
yes. So some are interns. Our situation is that with the economy, the costs, and we had another farm that we worked with that provided over half of our pigs, and they are just no longer able to raise the pigs. We have not been able to find anybody to replace them or pigs to be able to replace them. We have bought pigs from other farms and they are just not up to standards. Our chefs have standards, and quite frankly, we've had to send, a lot of those pigs to sausage and to hot dogs because they just weren't. I mean, the people who were raising, they were all raised right. They were just not up to our standards as far as taste and quality. So we have had to drastically cut back, and 2 of the places that we had to cut back was payroll and our feed. So payroll made it to where the two of the highest paid people here were our sons. So they are no longer here. Tyler lives here, and he still helps. Logan has, I don't know why, our youngest son's a winemaker. And now our middle son, our oldest son has gone to help in that industry as well. So, that was one of the hardest things that we had to do. But, everybody knows in order to survive, we've had to make some really difficult decisions. And the other thing is feed. And so Clay did some experiments with we have baleage, which is hay that was cut wet and then it's wrapped so it ferments. And it's most people in that application, they feed it to cows. So Clay, he does research, and his pig research is way back, like what people did way back a long time ago. And he reads lots of interesting articles and found that people fed that a very long time ago. And so he did an experiment with it. And in fact, they love it and it works. So we are feeding out that baleage and top dressing it with feed. So it's not causing us to have to feed so much feed. So we were able to cut our costs back there. We are currently, looking for some other farms that, could raise some pigs for us, but genetically, nobody can top what we have. And it's been both good and bad. We had chefs call and say, you all have the absolute best pork and this other pork just is not going to work. So, it was good and bad. So that's kind of where we find ourselves. It's a tough year for us.
And I know I
And,
have a topic that I'd love to at least just throw out there, or it's even just a, a brief conversation. One of the things, like, for instance, in the yarn industry, especially bringing education to the forefront, there's prior to, I wouldn't say it's as much now, but there was such a disconnect when I first started in terms of people understanding, like, really where your yarn comes from, especially, if you're knitting with acrylic, well, you're knitting with acrylic, but, just like my mission statement is to put a face with the fiber, to just really bring to the forefront, to give people a better understanding of how we got to the place of that yarn that's in their hands, and oftentimes the conversation I constantly have to have, not with my people on board now, but even like today, I had somebody that called and they wanted to come shop in the store. And I said, absolutely. But I've learned to make sure that they've gone to my website, that they've had a chance to see our prices, or explain to them or have a conversation, about that, so that they understand why
Right.
our yarns are higher end, and it's not just because it's small quantity, people forget, like you were just saying, it's the feed costs, the hay costs, it's the
Mhm.
vaccinations, it's when they get sick, it's everything that goes into it. It's the labor, it's the equipment on the farm. So one of the things that I always found interesting is, I don't want to say it's justified in terms of why pigs moved from outdoor production to indoor production, but there are definitely some downsides to pastured pork.
Exactly.
So I know the one that you told me about, the whole bird thing, but maybe just to share with people, in terms of understanding why, even if your pork was retail, why it would be more, not just because of small farm, but what are some of the challenges, that you face having pastured pigs?
Yeah, I mean, it's, if you put, when pigs are raised indoors, it's a completely controlled environment, their feet, and it doesn't even take anybody. I think all those houses are automated. I think one person can pretty much run those things because it's all automated. But, we have, fuel expenses because we have to make hay, and we have tractors, and we have to, go between the farms, and fencing, and then challenges when they want to get out, and you have to go round them all up. And so yeah, it is more labor intensive for sure. And your numbers aren't as big. Your litters are not as big because you don't have a mom that you're locking down in a crate, and every single piglet she has is going to live. So that's
What
kind
about
of
predation?
Yes. So, and that's the other thing. I mean, one year we kept losing piglets, and we could not figure out what in the world. And we lost a lot of piglets, maybe like 100. And we just couldn't figure out. And so we put up game cameras, and we actually saw a fox coming in at night and would steal piglets off of the mom that were nursing. So and the foxes were completely fine. We would see foxes out in the field. They got, everything was fine, but something happened to the foxes and they got sick. And there's a distemper went through here, and a mange went through here. And I just don't think that the foxes were able to do their normal hunting. Getting a piglet was very easy for them. So, and then they developed a taste for it. And then that's what, and we do have to have people come in and hunt foxes. And I know that's probably not very popular amongst some people, but we have to do that. We have to deal with that, because it's a huge loss for us to lose piglets to that.
Now, one of the things I was always taught about, at least back in school, and maybe this would only be like if it was a pre-existing farm or if there's overcrowding, but one of the things about pigs is they root, right? And so
Oh yeah.
is for you any issue about the fact that they can root and bring up viruses that potentially could be in the soil? I mean, I know that was things that I was taught into why they were moved indoors, but that could also just be, like I said, if it was a pre-existing farm. But there are certain bacteria, certain viruses that can hold dormant, in the soil, and be a threat. Do you have any issues with that?
No. And the reason, and yes, we could, and we know other farms that do. And the reason why we don't is because we have them in large spaces,
Yeah.
very large. And so pigs that are in smaller areas are going to root it all up. And then, you get the bacteria issues in there, and that's when you can get problems. We have had problems with birds bringing sickness. So starlings will come at a certain time of year and they want to eat out of the feeders, and they, defecate all over the feeders and where the pigs are. And we lost some piglets to that. It was a coronavirus that they got. And so what we learned from that was we just don't have piglets during that time of year.
Yeah, that
And
was
so
so
we had to,
interesting when you guys told me about that, because that was the other thing I was going to ask. That was incredible.
yeah. And so we were using, like, you can use a propane cannon, that like makes a like a bang, a shooting sound, but it's not very popular with neighbors. And I understand that it scares people's dogs really bad. And we totally get that. And so anyway, they outlawed it in our county. So we can't do that anyway. But so we just have to adjust. When you raise outside, you're constantly adjusting to things. Like this past weekend, it was a terrible weekend for us. Yes, we get cold weather. We don't get the cold and the wind. So what froze up, we had equipment failures that we never have. We had, so if we had all the pigs indoors, wouldn't be dealing with that stuff. You'd have a generator if you lost your power and that type of thing. So yes, there are way more things that go into raising.
Not to mention, who the hell can do stories when our damn fingers are freezing? I am not taking off my gloves to be hitting the phone. And those gloves that they say that you can, like, still.
No, they don't work. No, they don't work.
I'm like tapping on my phone. So
Yeah.
I'm like, you ain't getting stories when I'm freezing my butt off outside.
Yeah.
The minute you take your glove off and your hands get wet, or forget it. So,
Oh,
I
know.
that's the
Yeah,
downside.
exactly. That happened to me last weekend because I was like, oh, I can't be showing, I can't do stories too cold.
Oh, I
So.
know. It's absolutely hideous for sure. So I know what I'd like to do, just a couple of things. And then that way, maybe while I'm wrapping up, only because Lord knows, everyone knows I could do this forever. I think I'm just destined to be like this. I'm going to be like that 3-hour Joe Rogan podcaster, because
Yeah, you should. You're
I'm like, I have
hostess.
so many questions. I could care less if anybody else has questions. I'm like, I just have the best time. The trouble about all of this, guys, is I get so ramped up. Last night, I could not get to bed until like midnight because I was just like on super energy. I'm not even doing caffeine right now because I'm still getting over being sick. And yeah, so I just get so excited from all of this and seeing everybody and seeing people's interest and, just being able to see this all come to fruition. So as I'm doing some housekeeping, think if you have any last minute questions, for Linda, of course, before we thank her, but couple things for those of you guys that I still have, with us, which is amazing. And I've seen people jumping in and out, during this time, which is great also. So thank you to those of you that I didn't get to say hello as you came in. So I do want to remind everybody that tomorrow night, we're going to be joined by Sally Brandon and Alex Brandon. So for those of you guys that might be new, Sally is who has spun my yarn for the last 15 years. We've just gone through that recent change. Some of the lovely benefits of COVID, but more in a good way. It's just interesting. Not only did COVID make us pivot for supply chain issues, but what I've now found is the repercussions of COVID is many of the people that I've worked with, they've just made life changes, which of course everybody's entitled to, but I think that was the curveball that I was not expecting. And I have that in 2 areas, of my business. But anyway, so Sally is now focusing on her spinning. And for those of you that do remember Alex is her daughter, all of 13 and all full of sass. And Alex, while she does not, I'm going to let her talk about it, but so maybe while she is going to be phasing out of yarn availability for us. You might recall Alex loves to say that I can invest in her by purchasing her yarn that she creates from her animals. So we do have a live unboxing that's going to happen tomorrow night. I legit have not opened it. It is killing me. It is sitting in my office. Now, Alex got a gift from me and that little brat knows what it is. But I have a video that I'll be posting on my stories tonight after this, so do check it out as a little sneak peek. But I did not look at the yarn. Jill did. She taped it back up, so we're going to do a live unboxing. However, it is already up on the site, ready to go. Obviously, no picture, so I'm thinking nobody's going to buy it unless you see it. So that's going to be VIP access for you guys tomorrow night if you want to jump in on that. Of course, you've got your Holiday Life coupon code, so that means also you can get 10% off. There is 41 skeins available, which I mean is a lot. So I guess it just depends on how much you guys like it. It is a sport weight, so you'll have to check it out. And it's a different blend from what we normally have too. So I'm super excited about that also. So Holiday Life, LIYF, don't forget about that. That's your 10% off coupon code, only good through Thursday night, midnight. And that is going to also get you into that raffle. So even though it has nothing to do with Linda tonight, don't forget, we've got this huge basket that we are raffling off. So one lucky winner, and the way to get in on it is for every $10 that you spend, you get a ticket that goes into the drawing, and that's going to happen live on Friday the 6th, the culmination of our 12 days of Christmas. So that's just a little bit of my housekeeping that I wanted to do to put that out there for you guys so that you can keep that in mind and definitely continue to tune in. If there's any part of this that you missed, don't forget it is being recorded and uploaded to our new YouTube channel. So I think I have all of 10 subscribers, but we're going to keep working on it. We're going to keep getting there. And it's definitely a work in progress and an education that I'm just going to have to dive into. So I'm super excited about that as well. So any last question? Thank you so much, Erin, for dropping that in the chat. So appreciate it. You guys are awesome. Oh, are you sure? No, it's not my conscience, Dawn, because I already have the name. I'm just not telling you guys. So I did, though, speaking of llamas and fiber, Linda, I'm not sure if I remember this correctly, in terms of the application that you have for the fiber. Do I remember correctly? Was Clay doing something with it, with the pigs, or am I just making that up?
No, you're right. What Clay did is your discards,
So our
you took
second
that-
guys, so that would be the belly wool, anything that I skirt and let it fall on the floor because it's not the better quality of what I shear off is what she's referring to.
Yeah, so what he does with that, and especially when we were having those fox problems, is he took that and he put it around all the piglet houses and out in the field. So when the foxes came in contact with that, they're like, wait a minute, what is that? So it actually acted as a deterrent from the, for the foxes. So yeah, that was because people do that with their livestock guardian when they shear their dogs, they save the fur. And I used to do that with our baby goats. I would save the fur from the dog and put it around, and that would, help keep predators away. So I'm hoping I'm going to send off the fiber and have a rug made. That's my idea. So that's what I'm waiting for. Uh-oh, I have 4 minutes left on this battery.
No, it's all right. We're good. We're wrapping up. And
Yeah,
Dawn,
I think, yes, goodbye.
Dawn,
I'm
you
going
can
to go black in a minute.
You can go to YouTube. You can just do a search for Long Island Yarn and Farm. So I don't have a fancy name. It's just who I am. That's where you can find me. And because again, there's going to be all different content and things like that there. So you can go ahead and find that there. So I appreciate that. So guys, since we are going to be losing Linda, that's all right. See, Linda, I'm like plugged in eternally. So I could just never.
Well, I'm not. I'm on Clay's laptop and the charger's upstairs. So I'm in trouble.
No problem. Linda, I cannot thank you enough. David.
He just heard a train.
There.
Yeah. You tell everybody good night. Say, we're going to disappear here. We have 3 minutes left.
Well,
night.
Linda, I cannot thank you enough for joining us. I cannot thank my community enough, honestly, for just being so enthusiastic about this. And I really, really look forward to your feedback, guys. I did put on stories today, like if you've joined, give me some comments so I can repost those and share those with other people so that they can see what they're missing. But
Yeah, and just want to say real quick before I disappear off of here, that if you have any questions we didn't answer, just send me a direct message and I'll answer it for you. I'm sorry. I just literally now figured out how to do the chat questions.
No problem, no problem. But yes, guys, if you are not following Autumn Olive Farms, please do go ahead and do that so you can get lots of fun content and new characters. And Linda's great about communicating on there. And of course, you'll have to stay tuned to next April or maybe a little bit later this time, but early May for sure, when I'll be down her way doing my Shear and Share tour. Looking forward to seeing Cowgirl and Starstruck and everybody else as well. So
Yes, and her svelte body. So,
hopefully
right,
her svelte body. We got to get
Yeah.
going. All this winter sitting around is killing me. All right,
all
guys.
right.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you all so
Thank
much.
you.
I really
Thank you,
enjoyed getting to see
everybody.
everybody.
Take
Thank you.
care.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Linda.